Okay, I think we're live now, and I welcome you once again to this session in Studio Jakarta EE. I have a special honor, I would say, today to introduce Ed Bratt from Oracle and to thank him for taking the time and talk about a giant in our industry, which is Bill Shannon and his legacy in Java EE and Jakarta EE. Ed Bratt has worked very closely with Bill Shannon, and Bill's work had and still has enormous impact on Java enterprise industry. And all of us in Jakarta EE are very aware and recognize the loss we have with his passing. So with all that, I would welcome Ed to take it over. Ed.
This might be a little bit of a tough presentation. I'll tell you, it was a little tough for me to write it. So please, I hope this helps people understand a little bit more about Bill Shannon's life. If I'm lucky. Okay, so just to give you a quick background in Bill's, Bill grew up in, he was born in Pennsylvania. He grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and he graduated from Lakewood High in Cleveland in 1974. As you might imagine, looking at these two pictures that I've got here, he was an honor student, and he was also a member of the computer club at Lakewood High School. He was also a member of a Explorer Club that held its sessions at the NASA Lewis Research Center, which I think has been renamed to the John Glenn Research Center. He loved computing. He always was extremely at home with computing, and he liked to teach people how to compute and how to write programs. He even so much so that he even kept doing it after he graduated from high school. He came back and continued on as a mentor in this program for his high school. At high school, he met his soon-to-be wife, Karen Scherler. She attended Lakewood High School also. She was also an honor student. I guess it was sort of a high school romance that never ended. I don't think she went to the same colleges as Bill, but they were close enough. And then they got married in 1979. Bill's career started at Case Western Reserve University because he knew how to program. He started off by programming as a paid intern. He wrote some programs for their metallurgy department. After doing that for a couple of semesters, he took up a position with the Case Western Reserve Computer Services Group, and he initially was writing programs on a TI-960, which was quite an old beast. And then he graduated to something called the Harris /6. I think colloquially they called that the /6. That was that computer dates from about 1976, and it's quite a beast. One of the last computers that was based on discrete component technology. You could still look up the schematics, and if you wanted to build one, you could. In his junior year, he was asked to bring up Unix on this computer, and he sort of dove into that with gusto, and that turned into his Master of Science in Computers, Master of Computer Science, which he received in 1981. While doing that, he was using a compiler that was written by Sam Leffler and a shell that had been ported by Rob Gingle, who's he would maintain friendship with for his whole life. At his graduation, because of all the work he did, he was given a meritorious service award. His first job was Digital Corporation. He was recruited after attending a Usenet conference, I think, and he basically worked with Armando Stettner. And let's see, I got his card here. So that's Armando. He's one of these Unix gurus. and he was principal in getting Vaxxas up and running on Unix. While they were doing this port, he was collaborating with Bill Joy, who was also working on BSD port of Unix, and he was at UC Berkeley. And during this time, things like UECP, which would, which was sort of the foundation for mail, and Usenet, which was a sort of a group system for posting, was just growing by leaps and bounds. In the early 80s, Karen and Bill kept these text maps of these systems, and you can just sort of see how explosively they grew here. So this is, each of these words here is a UUCP site, Usenet site. In February of '82, it all fit on one page. In October later that year, it had expanded to 3 pages, and by 1984, it was up to 6 whole pages. Each of these tiny little things here represents a site. And at that point, they said, this is ridiculous. We're not going to do this anymore. After a short time, Bill Joy had come back, and he recruited Bill to Sun Microsystems. And he joined Sun as employee number 11. And they worked on Unix for Sun workstations and computers. He was a key contributor to Sun OS, and which later turned into Solaris. After Solaris was done, he sort of moved into Java development. He tried several projects, and he really settled into enterprise Java. As you know, Sun was acquired in 2009 by Oracle. But Bill was, he was also quite, he was never very far from these April Fool's hijinks. So I got a couple of tell-all photos here that I lifted off the internet, right? So this was they disassembled this VW bug, and they moved it into the office here. And there's Bill standing in the background. One of the April Fools was moving this Ferrari, which you can't really see, but you notice that Bill's he's wearing waders here, so clearly he had something to do with this prank, April Fool's prank. And then they installed a golf green in this was, I think, Scott McNeely and somebody else's office that they shared. And there's Bill again standing in the background. So he wasn't all seriousness, but he also was a family man. And his wife Karen, when they moved out here, basically they just packed up everything and came to the West Coast. She initially worked for Sun as a contractor, and then she joined as a regular employee. And she did many, many things, a lot of training, a lot of helping people understand what Unix was. And then she left Sun when their first daughter, Kim, was born. And then their second daughter, Amy, was born in the mid-90s. Bill's role in enterprise Java was, I can't even really sort of put any bounds on it. He led or co-led every Java EE version that was released, from the J2 EE 1.2 in December of 1999 all the way up to Java EE 8 in August of 2017. All the while, he was the Java mail spec and implementation lead. In terms of the contribution to Jakarta to Eclipse Foundation, he worked tirelessly to make sure that all the contribution details, all of the legal requirements were met, so that we could bring this over successfully. And the first Jakarta EE 8 release was September of 2019. So, without Bill, we wouldn't be here for sure. We wouldn't be here. I suspect there might have been an enterprise Java. But it's hard to imagine that we would have made this, gotten over the hurdle of getting us to Eclipse Foundation. Bill's his penchant was, clearly solid engineering. He really appreciated written clarity, and you could see that in his work. He devoured technical content. And he gave ruthlessly honest feedback. And if you browse the internet, just search in Google for various little people who've left thoughts on Bill. You'll see some of that. You may have experience on it yourself. But he was also extremely patient, at least with me, and always willing to spend time to educate me. And I think some of that stems from his, from his history. And he just thrived on collaboration, right? That was, that was the thing that he knew you were always stronger as a collective than you would be as any individual. And that went for individual people as well as organizations. And you can see that reflected in how Enterprise Java is structured. So this is my last slide here. I just want to leave you with some links to sites where you could read more about Bill's life. This is a picture from last December, almost a year ago now. Bill, Karen, his wife, Kim and Amy, and his dog Angus. They continue to live in Los Altos. The three of them and Angus. Kim is quite proud of her second-generation Silicon Valley programmer status, and Amy is finishing up her bachelor's degree from Oregon, and she's learning her first language, which unfortunately is Python. So that's what I have. I'll stop the share and I'll see if there's any questions. I will post all those slides for anybody who's interested, and there's a remembrance page for Bill that I'll fill in. I have to say I was really kind of struggling to get these written down, and had a big. His wife said, he was really tall and he had big shoes. He'll have a hard time filling those. But in any case, that's my tribute. I hope that helps you know a little bit about his life.